Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show, and welcome. It's Wednesday, so let's say hi to our This Week in Politics lineup. It is stacked, as always, with Regan Watts, founder of Fratton Park, as well as former senior aide to Jim Flaherty, and Tom Parkin, principal at Impact Strategies and Canadian columnist and commentator. Both of you, hello, welcome, and happy Wednesday.
Hey, Ben. Bonjour, mon Tom.
I don't know if you were listening to the previous segment, but we had a pretty significant conversation with a Conservative MP who sort of blew the lid off of this story that there is a former ISIS convicted terrorist who is living out his sentence in a townhouse 100 kilometers north of Calgary with no fences. And I got to wonder, what the heck do you have to do in this country to actually serve a sentence that is commensurate with the crime that you committed? Regan, why don't we start with you?
Well, Ben, I have to admit, I don't know the particulars of the judicial proceedings and why he was sentenced. This person was sentenced to serve his time in a townhouse. But I do think by any reasonable standard, and any listener or viewer right now who is hearing about this story for the first time, they would be asking themselves, what the heck is going on in our justice system that major public risks like this gentleman are allowed to live basically among the general public in cushy accommodations in, just north of Calgary. Like, it doesn't pass the smell test. As I say, I don't understand the legal parameters around it, but normal people will look at this and go, what the hell's going on?
Well, but Tom, we're living in a world where Paul Bernardo was moved to a medium security facility, one of the worst monsters that this country has ever produced. And so if we're living in that world, maybe this does make sense.
Well, what we don't know is exactly what's being presumed here, which is that he's a threat. So this story goes back a long way. This is about a guy he's now 36. When he was 23 or 24, he went to fight with ISIS with a member of his family. That's obvious, and he was investigated when he came back to Canada. He was charged. He was tried. He pled guilty. And he said, because by the time this came to court, it was 2020. So that was 7 years after he'd gone over and operated with this, with the terrorist force. And at that time, he told the justice, I made a mistake. I wouldn't do that again. Now, I don't know the guy. None of us knows this guy. But I can tell you something for sure. The difference between being 36 and 25 is a lot. And being dragged into something by your family, as Omar Khadr was, is also a significant thing. Is the guy truly, I made a very, very bad decision when I was young, and I'm living out my sentence, and I'm okay with that. I don't need walls around me. I accept it. We don't know. That's the problem with this news story.
And Tom,
these important things.
And Tom, listen, I get it, and I don't want people to have to serve in manners that are unfair or inhumane, but certain things have to be true for everybody. We as a nation went to war against ISIS, and this person, at 20, listen, if at 22 you can't tell your dad you don't want to go to Syria and become a sniper for ISIS, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not a me problem. That's a you problem. And certain things have to be true. Certain things have to be true. If you pick up arms against a nation, there are certain minimum requirements in terms of what your punishment should be, whether or not you're sorry or not. I don't think that's a cold position to hold.
No. Yeah, but he got 12 years, right? He got 12 years sentence. But the issue, Ben, is about the level of security at the prison. At a 12-year sentence, the guy is going to get out eventually. Right?
I don't know why you would want to get out. I mean, if it's a townhouse, the way it's being described, there's a lot of Canadians who would like to live in something like a townhouse, Regan.
All I'm saying is we don't know this guy and what he truly believes today, and we just don't know those facts.
Yeah.
So a person at 36 can be very
Regan,
different than a person at 24.
Tom, what we do know is this man pled guilty and is convicted of fighting for ISIS it is unacceptable
Yes.
for any criminal
Right.
who has been convicted of something like this to live in a cushy, comfortable townhouse north of
Is it
Calgary.
cushy? Is
Eh,
it cushy?
well,
Or are
I
you just making
accept
that part up?
No, Tom,
You know,
based on the
cushy-
conversation with the one person who actually went in, he said the best way to describe it is it's a townhouse. There's no other way to describe
I
it.
know it's a townhouse. It's built in an old army barracks north of Calgary in 1974.
But
I'm
okay.
aware of the place. The word cushy is
look,
very
Ben,
loaded,
Yeah.
this is
right?
Yeah.
this
We
is the
don't know
difference
these
between
things. We're just making stuff up now, Ben.
No, but we're
But-
not, Tom.
no.
This is the fact. We are commenting based on what a member of parliament, who by the way was elected, took it upon himself
Yes.
to visit. So I accept
I know. I know all
facts
politicians
provided.
are always truth tellers
Oh,
Maybe-
and would
well,
never
Tom,
make up a story just
Tom,
to rile the
I
public.
think
All I'm
reviewing the
saying,
motives-
Ben, I'm not sure that I agree. I'm not sure that I disagree.
Yeah.
What I know is that I don't know what this.
all right.
person
You know
is
what? So
like
listen.
today,
So
12 years after he committed a very serious crime.
So we'll put a pin in that. But what I think you're saying, Tom, and I think we can all agree on, is now that this story has come to light, it is incumbent upon the government to give us the details on this. If I get stonewalled on this, if the government is not forthcoming with the information that, Tom, you said we don't have that we need, I think it is entirely reasonable and within my rights to speculate to the negative. If they don't give us the information, I get to speculate to the negative. Regan, I'll give you the last word and then we're going to move on.
No, Ben, I actually don't agree with you on that. I do agree with, on that point. You know, we do deserve to know what the processes were that ended up with anybody who's convicted of a serious crime ending up in a less than, frankly, a maximum security situation. That should be a public record, and there's public process to do that. So we have to be able to feel like justice is working, but we can't just make stuff up when we don't have the information. That just fuels.
Yeah, no,
that's negative.
Yeah, no, I agree. However, if we ask for the information and they don't give it, I get to assume the worst. It's human nature. I get to assume the worst. Regan, anything you want to add?
I think being soft on terrorism is a bad look for anybody, and I think the idea that we would question what an MP saw firsthand because we don't have information, I think is not acceptable and unfair. And if Tom believes that this gentleman should be in better conditions, he's welcome to have him at his lovely cottage where he speaks to.
I never said that. I'm just saying that just because Mr. Caputo says that, I don't know if it's true. Mr. Caputo says a lot of things about crime. Apparently, there's a crime spree in Kelowna. Even though, this is the kind of stuff he does. So
I don't know.
Wait,
yes.
Let's wait and see some facts.
Wait and see. Yeah, well, hopefully the government will provide those facts. But I don't think. I mean, frankly, Tom, I don't need to see the crime statistics to see that, for example, on the streets of Toronto, stuff is not as good as it used to be. People do not feel as safe as they used to be. Good luck owning a jewelry store at Christmas time anywhere in this country, because a gang is going to come out of nowhere and smash and grab and take everything. It's as certain today as the tides are. And that's a reality. I don't need statistics to tell me that that's a fact. But I will say,
Tom, if you need some betting for this gentleman to stay at your place, I'd be happy to donate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that maybe media should involve facts before we just throw out opinions about people getting strung up by their thumbs.
I don't know that I don't know that we're doing anything irresponsible here, Tom. As a matter of fact, I know we're not. I know we're not. We've got somebody who has
questions.
Yep. Somebody.
Asking questions is good.
Asking questions is good, and it's incumbent upon. But I'm telling you, man, if in the next few days the government doesn't give the Canadian public some answers, they are going to rightly ask themselves why that is. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to ask, what is next for Pierre Poilievre? I talked to him on this show yesterday. What does he have to do between now and January to secure his position as the leader following that leadership review? What does he have to do to be a responsible and effective leader of the opposition in the face of a popular new leader and new prime minister in Mark Carney? So that's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Ben Mulroney Show. Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show. Welcome back to our midweek This Week in Politics panel. Welcome back to Regan Watts and Tom Parkin. Guys, thanks so much for sticking around.
Great to be with you.
My
man.
pleasure.
Okay, someone who hopes to stick around for a while, Pierre Poilievre. He just won a massive victory in his by-election in Alberta, securing over 80% of the vote. That's despite having 213 other people on the ballot. I think that's got to be a record. So he did what he had to do yesterday. And now the question is, what must he do, if he can do anything, according based on this conversation, if there's anything he can do to remain a legitimate and effective leader of the opposition, and ultimately, hopefully for him, securing the position of prime minister at some point. Regan, I know you've had some opinions. You've gone on the record. Why don't we start with you?
Sure. So, Ben, I remain a supporter of Mr. Poilievre's, and he's the leader of the Conservative Party. And I think, I'll say it up front, I don't expect him to have any issues with his leadership review that takes place in January of 2026. He's got a firm grip on the party, and his by-election win means that he's going to be back in the House of Commons. And I think Mr. Poilievre is more than likely going to be the Conservative Party leader in the next election. I say more than likely because anything can happen in politics, as we saw. Both Doug Ford and Prime Minister Carney have proven that you can run for leadership and 6 weeks later win high office. And so anything's possible, but I suspect he'll be the leader in the next campaign. Mr. Poilievre has a challenge, though, and that is, and you talked about this in the lead-in, the Prime Minister has proven to be pretty good at the job, and his credentials, his CV, will always be one of his greatest strengths. And I think and I think Canadians are looking at the current moment with President Trump and other things that are going on and saying, thank God we have a two-time central banker and corporate executive who's running the government of Canada. That's not to say Mr. Carney is not without challenge, or challenges that will be before him. But for Mr. Poilievre, he's got to find a way to differentiate himself as a political leader from Mr. Carney than he did in the last election campaign. He needs to create a strategy and a narrative and a tone that will differentiate himself in the eyes of Canadians, because it is not going to be sufficient to hang on to the Conservative base in order to win the next election campaign. And the Conservative Party, I know, the people I speak to, think and are hoping that Mr. Carney is going to somehow mess up or screw up the implementation of his government's plans. And for me, hope is not a strategy. And you need to come up with a strategy beyond slogans and question period in order to present a viable plan for Canadians. And I think Mr. Poilievre, his challenge is going to be over the next several months, what is that strategy, and how can I continue to nuance my position and my presentation to Canadians so that people in the center, in the 905, the 416, suburban parts of BC, and certainly Atlantic Canada, will give me a second look.
Tom, it is a very tricky needle for him to thread, because the stakes are so high, because the previous government mucked up so many things, and we find ourselves with so many intertwining crises, all of which require immediate attention, that everybody, including Conservatives, have to, on a very real level, hope that this government is successful at what they want to achieve. And so for this leader of the opposition, he needs to find a way to oppose, but not cheer on or hope for failure, because failure today means cataclysmic results for Canadians. It's a really tough job.
It is. I agree with so much of what Regan just said, and you too, Ben. This is a very tough circumstance for him, because just opposing Trudeau, like, people were at the place where you could just say whatever you wanted about Justin Trudeau toward the end, and it'd be like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? I buy it. That's not the way it is with Mr. Carney. I suspect it won't be for quite some time. Maybe he'll get there where people just loathe him. It happens. But certainly it's not right now. And I think the challenge, and this is what we're speaking to here, is how do you have a contrast with somebody that kind of fundamentally is doing very conservative things, the things that conservatives would like to do? So if he's can find that spot of contrast where he can still be a conservative and find space between himself and Carney, then I guess that's the space to go to.
Yeah.
But is that a big enough space, and is it space on the important issues that will change people's minds.
I've got
Because
to
the big
wonder.
issues are
What?
obviously
Yeah.
economic development and jobs and things of this sort.
Well,
That's the
maybe let's,
Trump,
yeah, let's,
you will,
Regan, maybe
the
let's
Trump
bring it
card.
back. Maybe let's bring it back to what we were just talking about. You know, the last election was fought over jobs and the economy, and the Liberals were very good at playing keep away on criminal justice and criminal justice reform. They didn't want to touch that because they knew it was a losing argument for them. They knew themselves that they had failed and didn't want to prosecute the election on that file. Maybe that's the file. Maybe that's the one that he can be pushing forth. It's not the economy. It's not trade. It's not relationship with Donald Trump. It's these issues that are affecting our perception of safety.
So Ben, a couple things. One, I will correct you. The last election was fought on some of those things, but ultimately it came down to who Canadians felt was best placed to take on President Trump in a trade war. And Mr. Carney's immaculate CV won the day, and that's clear. And we know from the polling that the Conservative Party trailed on any number of public policy issues, including the economy,
Yep.
To the Liberals. And so you touch on a point, and I think Tom opened up the door on this one, and I generally agree, which is he's got to find areas that he can grab onto without being exploitative, without leaning in on the slogans, and without gaslighting or trying to torch an issue. Maybe that's immigration. Maybe that's tough on crime. I would say that the government has done very little in the near term around affordability. And if I was Mr. Poilievre, I would be looking and hammering on those affordability issues because it's still an issue for many Canadians. The challenge Mr. Poilievre has is the government of Canada and Prime Minister Carney, who, by the way, still has me purring, is he has a budget coming up this fall.
Yeah.
And if Mr. Carney uses his budget like he did, for example, the defense announcement, there's no conservative in the country who's going to say you shouldn't pay soldiers more.
Correct.
If he uses
that was a great day. I loved that announcement. I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be very hard for Mr. Poilievre. So he's got to be patient. The instinct to attack on certain issues is going to have to be managed. And whether he can do that or not is kind of up to him. But you know, I think the nuance and the jujitsu he has to play here is very difficult.
I mean, listen, Tom. We talk about, and certainly our purring guest here talks about the immaculate CV of our prime minister. That cannot be denied. But a resume is only so good. It's only good if it leads to better outcomes for Canadians. Otherwise, Mark Carney runs the risk of being an empty suit. You know, a great resume and nothing for Canadians to show for it. And so, does the Conservative Party sit there and pretty much just try to just blend in, support the government when they can, oppose them on these key files that might have just been identified? And I know you said hope's not a strategy, but there's the accomplishments or the victories or the failures are only going to stick to this government, right? It's theirs to win or theirs to lose. And if the opposition just sits there, then relative to that government, they either become more or less attractive.
Yeah, Ben, to go back to your point about crime and crime and punishment, crime and order. I think that is somewhere that the Conservatives can make hay, but it's just not it's always going to be a second tier issue. It's like when we got unemployment in Toronto of 9% and nationally 6.9%. 700,000 people out of work in Ontario. That is the issue. Trump and tariffs and our economic security, our national security. These are the ace cards. And so, crime and punishment, important, very important, but not going to be sufficient. The affordability thing, which Regan mentioned, I think has a lot of potential, and I think it opens the doors left and right for the New Democrats and the Conservatives. The trick here is, I believe that it's possible, even though Mr. Carney is accomplished and he has this perfect CV, that there may be a perception that he's not really a common person and he's out of touch with what common people's needs are. And I think we kind of saw that in the Air Canada strike and the way he kind of clutched that up.
All right, well,
he just was not in touch.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there, guys. This is
affordability.
Yeah, probably
Could be the trick.
Guys, this has been a great panel. I want to thank you so much. We're at the middle of the road. We're at the top of the mountain on this hump day. So thank you so much for ending on a high note with me. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Have a great week, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.